Hi there, I'm Paul, and thanks very much for checking out part 2 of this series on using cognitive services, particularly the vision services, with Powerapps. So a little recap then. So in part 1 I demonstrated a few scenarios that we could use cognitive services for. It was about 5-6 examples I showed you, and then I said I would go through and I would make a dedicated video on how I created each of those samples. So I'm going to do this video on the caption and tag from Add Picture. So let's just remind you what that one looked like. So what I did here, I just set up a single screen where we've got an Add Picture control. We can click to add a picture. And what should we choose this time? Let's choose this one. So I'm going to open that picture up, and Cognitive Services is going to go away, and it's going to give me a caption for that image, and it's going to give me a series of values, terms that describe the image. So there it is. It's told me that it's the actor Paul Kay posing for the camera, and then we've got a list down here of words or terms that might describe what's in the picture, or what's going on in the picture. So we've got person, man, wearing, he's looking, he's got a jacket, and so on. And these come back in order of confidence. We can't actually see the confidence value on here, but they're coming back in the order of confidence. So as we get further and further down the list, we start getting things which might not be quite so accurate. So I don't think he's wearing glasses. He's wearing a shirt, he's smiling, it says there's a table, but I don't see a table there. Anyway, so this is the example that I'm going to show you how to build today. So remember, all we have to do is select a picture. So let's choose something different this time. And then what's happening in the background is once that picture has loaded, Cognitive Services, or the picture's being sent to Cognitive Services, and Cognitive Services is sending back, having done its analysis, a caption. So this one says a close-up of a plate of food on a table, and then a series of, as I say, words, terms that may describe the activity or the contents of the photograph. So let's go ahead and show you how to build that. Now the first thing we're going to need is we're going to need a key to use Cognitive Services and the vision service within Cognitive Services, but don't worry, we can try that out completely for free. So I'm going to start by showing you how you can sign up for vision services, and then we'll go ahead and we will build the app. So I'll drop this link into the description of the video, but you can just do a search on try Cognitive Services, and this will come up, and here we can see categorized some of the different services that we have available to us, and that we can try out for free. So if we go to the vision APIs, those are the ones that we need. The one that you need for this particular session is the computer vision API, and we can get an API key for that, which will allow us to do up to 5,000 transactions. I think that's in a month. So you can send 5,000 pictures off at a rate of up to 20 pictures per minute. So you can do that for free. There are paid tiers where you can send a lot more data than that. You can analyze a lot more images than that, but this is going to be fine for us for now. So if I hit the Get API key, here are my options. I can go in as a guest. I don't need to give it any credit card details, but it will only last for 7 days. And if you hit Get Started on there, let's actually do it. You can click to sign the agreement. You can choose your particular region, and then you can click Next. Oh, once I've clicked in the I agree box, we can click Next. And then I've got to sign in with one of my accounts, so it knows that I'm not just continually signing in every 7 days to get a new API key. So let's do that with the Microsoft account that I'm currently signed in with. And what's going to happen when you've got your account set up, you're going to get two pieces of information. You're going to get a what they call an endpoint, and you're going to get a key that allows you to use the service. So here we are. Okay, remember this will only last for 7 days. I'd better quickly get off this screen before you copy what's on there. But here are the two pieces of information that we needed. We've got an endpoint. We've actually got two endpoints here. We've got an endpoint for version 1 and version 2 of Cognitive Services. So they have slightly different services available, I think, some newer ones and improved enhancements in version 2. And then we've got our keys, gives us two keys. So those are the two pieces of information that you need. Okay, so that's one way that you can do it. The other way that you can do it, if you don't want to be limited to 7 days, but you still don't want to spend any money, then you can sign up for this through Azure. So I'm going to jump through to my Azure dashboard here. So you don't have to pay any money for this either, but this will allow you to use it for more than the 7 days. And then if you want to upgrade to a paid tier, then you can do that as well. So I've come into my Azure dashboard, and then I'm going to click on all services. Okay, so you can sign up for Azure. You will need a credit card number, but it doesn't cost you anything. It's a pay-as-you-go service, so you add different services which may be free or they may be paid. If they are paid, then you're going to get billed for it at the end of the month, and you'll get a report telling you, which service cost you how much money. So you can sign up for Azure, but you will have to give it your credit card. Once you've signed up for Azure, you can then start adding services. So I've come to all services here on the left, and then I could either search or I could scroll down through here. And if I scroll down far enough, then we should get to the machine learning stuff, AI and machine learning. We want cognitive services there. And then it's going to ask us which of the cognitive services we want. So here are some that I added previously. So I'll hit the add button again just to show you the process. So we hit the add button, and then we get our different cognitive services which are available. So we've got bot services and machine learning, but then down here we've got cognitive services, and I'm going to need to click on the more button. Okay, and then here we are, and somewhere down here, yeah, we've got the custom, sorry, not the custom vision, we want computer vision, So we hit computer vision on here. We say that we do indeed want to create a computer vision service within our Azure portal, and then we can give it a name, whatever you'd like to call it. The subscription level, I think these are only available on a pay-as-you-go. The location, okay, so you'll want to choose a location which is close to you. That's just going to cut down on latency. So the further you have to send your image to be processed, then obviously the longer it's going to take to get there, and then once processed, when the information is coming back, the longer it's going to take to make that return journey. So choose a location which is close to you or close to the other services, your Office 365 tenant, for example. And then we've got the pricing tier, and we've got two levels on here. So we want to go for F0. This is the free one. So we can actually click to say, give us the pricing details. And here we are. So F0, this is free. It's not going to cost you anything at all. You can send up to 20 images per minute, and you can send a total of 5,000 images per month. And these are the different services available. On the paid tier, it's exactly the same services available, but you can just use more. So it looks like there's no limit on the number of calls you make per month, but you can make up to 10 calls per second. So you could actually start analysing video with this as well. You could have a video stream and send that up to Azure to analyse every few frames. And then the cost on here, just so that you get an idea. So it's per 1,000 calls you would pay $1. Okay, so that's what we would set up there. Resource groups are just a way of, within Azure, tracking groups of services that you have got, and that's handy for management and billing purposes. So let's say, for example, that we are building an application, and the application is going to need Azure SQL DB, and it's going to need some cognitive services. We could put those two items in a resource group, and then we can easily see what's in each of our resource groups, and when you get billing, you can see it by the resource group. So if you get to the point where you're running multiple applications, and each application has a slightly different set of services that you are using, then you can actually track how much each of those applications is costing you very precisely, so you know what's going on. Okay, and then I'm not going to hit create now, but if I did hit create, it would go ahead and it would give me that endpoint and the key, just like we saw when we clicked on the free services. Okay, so I don't want to turn this into too big a session on Azure, but hopefully that's all the steps you need if you want to be using this beyond 7 days and you're not familiar with Azure. This should get you started in terms of adding cognitive services as a facility there. Okay, so what I'm going to do now then is I will create a new Powerapps app so that we can go through step by step what we did to build the application. Remember that when you're doing it, if you're following along, get your API keys first, because we're going to need those in the next section. Okay, so here we are on the Powerapps Create a New App screen, or the Powerapps home screen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start from blank, and what we'll do is we'll make this a tablet form factor app, just so that we've got plenty of space to play with on the screen. So let's go ahead and make this app. Okay, here we are. So, completely blank app. What I'm going to do first is I am going to go to our data sources, and I'm going to add as a data source the vision services that we have just got our endpoint and our API key for. So in addition to what you would think of traditionally as your data sources, like a SharePoint list or a SQL Server table or an Excel sheet, these data sources can also be sort of functions where you send information off and get information back again. So let's go ahead and make a new connection. I'm just using pause there so you don't have to wait too long. So I haven't set this up yet in this particular tenant, so I don't have my computer vision listed there at the moment. So we're going to hit new connection, and we're going to come down until we can find the computer vision API. There it is. So I'm going to tap on the computer vision API. Okay, and now it's going to ask me for that account key and the endpoint, or the site URL. So I'm just going to go and get that from the free account I set up a moment ago. So I'll use the free one for this one. So I've gone ahead and I have filled that in. Now you get two keys that you can use. I don't think it matters which key you put in. I think either will work. And there are two options for the site URL as well. One of them ends version 1, one of them ends version 2. So I'm not quite sure what the new features are in version 2 compared to version 1, but hey, because it's newer, it must be better, right? So I've just gone for version 2 there. So I'm going to hit create here. And now I've got that connector set up. So I'm going to be able to use that to send my image to Cognitive Services and have Cognitive Services send back, in this case it's the caption and the list of terms that apply. Oops, wants me to authenticate again, bear with me. Okay, so I just authenticated again. And we'll pause while it's thinking about that. Oh, couldn't be authenticated. Okay, let me just see if I can fix that. Okay, so I think what happened there is I had selected the endpoint, the URL for version 2, and I had put in key 1. So it looks like you've got to match. If you're using version 1 of computer vision, then use key 1. And if you're using version 2, then use key 2. So all I did was change the password to key 2, and it worked fine. Okay, it's good that I'm making the mistakes, and then you don't have to. So let's start putting some things in here then. So what we're going to do first of all then is we're just going to put in our add picture control. So there we are. Let's make that a little bit bigger so it's going to be easier for you folk to see. And then what we're going to do is we are going to say that we want to send the image that we have selected off to Cognitive Services. So let's just click to get a picture added in here in the design mode. So anything will do. We'll go with the hot dogs this time. So now we've got a picture in there. It's going to be a little bit easier to see what's going on. So now I'm going to add a button to send that image off to Cognitive Services. Now I could put the code for this button on the change picture button that's already here, but just for the purposes of demonstration, so that you can see everything that's going on, I'm going to add it as a separate button for the moment. It's also quite handy when you're developing, I find at least, to create separate buttons for things, and then when you've got each step working, then you can perhaps combine them all into a single formula behind one of the existing buttons on the screen. Okay, so here we are on select. What you'll find we can do now is we can actually, in our formulas, use this computer vision API. And the computer vision API has a number of different functions, a number of different services that you can use. So you can see there's some stuff to do with OCR and some stuff to do with thumbnails and describing an image from its URL. For this particular example, we're going to do describe image content. I think that's the right one. If it's not, we'll change it in a moment. And then it's going to say, well, okay, what is the image content that you want to describe? So that's going to be uploaded image 1. So that's just the name of our image control there, dot. And we want to send the image property from that. So that's great. That's the only argument that we need to complete. And we need to store the information that's going to come back from that. So we're sending the image to the describe image content function of the computer vision API, and that's going to send some information back. So where are we going to put the information that comes back? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to put that in a collection. So I'm just going to use the clear collect command, and I'm going to say we'll call it col des, short for description. So we're going to create a collection called col des, and that's going to be filled with whatever comes back from our computer vision describe image content command. So let's have a little look at that. So I'm going to click the button here. While that's going on, Chrome seems to like to fill in random boxes for me, so let's fill that out. Okay, so you probably saw some activity going on there. So fingers crossed, that image has gone off to the Computer Vision API service, and the service has sent back a caption and some description. So we put that into a collection, so let's go and look what's inside this collection. So I'm going to go up to View, and I'm going to click on Collections, so we can use this little tool to see what's in our collection. So we do have a collection called ColDes, and inside that we've got a table. It's only got one row and one column, and that column is called Description. And then inside that description we've got another table. So I'm going to click on that table, and I can see what's in there now. And look, we've got a little navigator at the top that says, okay, you went into ColDes and then you went into Description. So I'm now going to click on here. So just an interesting thing to point out. This is very useful to know and is going to come in handy later. But often when you get data back from services like the Computer Vision API, it comes back, you're getting one thing back, you're getting one object. So we're getting a table back, but we're getting a table which contains other tables within it. So we're getting a table back called Description, and then within that we've got a table called, this one is actually called Captions. And inside that Captions table we've got a single row. So we've got the text, so the caption itself, and we've got a confidence score as well. So let's see if we can jump up a level, and let's see what's in tags. Inside tags I've just got a series of values which describe the image. So wow, how simple was that? So what we've done is we've added one connection, we've added one select image control, and we've added one button with a one-line formula behind it. And we're already managing to send our image off to Cognitive Services and get results back. Now, just a warning, they're not all going to be quite as simple as this one. I'm starting with the easiest, and later ones will become a little bit more complicated. So the only thing we need to do now is we need to pull out the information from that collection and display it on the screen. So let's do that. I'm going to insert a label first of all, and I'm going to use the label to show the caption because we only get one caption back. So let me pop this over here. There we are, and perhaps we'll make that text a little bit bigger in case it's not so easy to see on the video. So I'm now going to go into the text property. Oops. Here we are, and now this is where things get a little bit interesting because we've got to put in a formula which is going to navigate us to our ColDes collection, and then within that we've got to take the value out of the first row and the first column, which was that description table, and then within that table we've got to go to the first row and the first column, which was for our captions, and then we've got to drill in and say, okay, we want the actual caption. Maybe we'll put the confidence in another box. So let me just see if I can get this formula right. To save embarrassment, I'm going to pause it while I put this formula together, and then I'll talk you through it when I'm 100% sure I've got it correct. Okay, so this is the formula that we need to go inside that collection, into the description section, into the caption section, and then pull back the data from the column called text. Remember, there were two columns, one called text and one called confidence. So if I were to change that, see, so we can see the text of the caption down here. If I actually change this to confidence, there we are, we can see the confidence expressed as a number from 0 to 1 that it's got there. So let's pop that back to text again. So text as in the name of the column is text, it's not text property. So this is a bit of a funky looking formula. Let me do my best to talk you through how we get there. So what I've done is I've just popped into Notepad to try and help us visualize the path that we've got to go. So remember, we've got a collection called col.des. Inside that collection, we've got a table. That table has one row and one column, and the column is called description. If we drill down into description, we've got a single row with two tables or two objects within it, one called captions, one called tags. And if we drill down into the captions one, what we've got is a single row with two columns, confidence and text. So let's see how we can use that path to help us build our formula. So I like to try and do this sort of one little bit at a time. And what I have found is, I left it on here, good. If you use a data table, you can just sort of check a little bit of whether you're getting your formula correct or not as you go along. So let me come to here. So what we know is we've got a collection which we've called col.des, and we could set that to be the items property for our data table. And we can see in there we've got something called description. So I'm just using this to help me get my formulas correct. So what I can then do is I can say, look, I'm only interested in the first row of what's in col.des. So that's fine. I can check here and we can see, yeah, there's description, but it'll just be one row of description. I know we've only got one row in description anyway, but this is currently in a collection, and a collection could potentially have multiple rows. So because the type of thing that we're working with is a collection, and collections can have multiple rows, we've got to say first. So give us the first row from column des, from collection col.des, and then give us what we've got in description. So now we can see here we're down to our captions and our tags. Now we can then see if we can drill down further. So description dot captions. So is that working? Yes, it is. We've got our confidence and we've got our text. So that's very good. And then let's see if we can drill down from here into text. Okay, and yes, we can. And then we've got just the field text, which is showing in there. So let's see if we can now use this in our label. And we can't. We're getting an error here because it's coming back and it's saying, we expect text values, but what we've got here instead is we've got a table value instead. So let's remind ourselves again what our structure is. So we've managed to get the first row from our collection, the first item, so the thing from the first row in the description column. We've then managed to come down into here. And this one is, you can't tell the difference when you look in the navigator, but this is being treated as a record, so we don't have to bother saying first with this one. This is being treated as a record, so we can get the caption and the tags from here without having to use the first. But then when we come down to here, this one is being interpreted as a table, which could potentially have multiple rows. So we need to have another first in here. So if I say first there and put a close parentheses here, boom, now we've actually got our label coming through. So that's a little bit complicated how we are working with this, because we can't see very easily within Power Apps whether things are being returned as a table or whether they're being returned as a record. If something is being returned as a table, then you're going to have to use first to pick out the first value. If something is being returned as a record, then the first is assumed. It can only have one row if it's a record, and so you don't need it. So we don't have to put a first around this description, because description was being treated as a record, but we did have to put a first around the captions because the captions was being treated as a table. Now, as you play around with these, you will find, for example, if I do put a first around that description, that you actually get an error message back that will say, oh, hang on a minute, you have tried to apply first to a record and first only applies to a table. So let me just see if I can get that to show up for you. So there we are. I've just modified that formula slightly so that the bracket goes around description. So forget about captions and text on the end at the moment. So we're doing our first, getting our first row from our collection and returning description, and then we're trying to get the first row from description, and then what we'll find if we hover over that is invalid argument type record. We were expecting a table instead. The function first has some invalid arguments. So from that, I know that description is being treated as a record and not as a table, and I need to adjust my formula accordingly. Okay, so let's set it back then so that we're just treating description as a record, and then within that record we want the captions column, and then from within that we want text. Okay, so there's our caption, and obviously what we can do is we can copy paste that, just drag that down the screen, and there we are, and then change the text to confidence. There we go, good. And now what we want to do is we want to show all of the terms, all of the words that apply to the picture. So we'll do that in our data table. So in here I'm going to change this a little bit. So let's remind ourselves of our route through our data. I want to be getting the tags this time, so I've got to get the first row of my collection. Then I can just specify description, because it's going to return a record object, and then within that I can go and get the tags. So let's see if we can get that formula right. So here we are. Let's do the whole thing again from scratch. So first from collection description. Then we want to have a look in the description record, and then we want to have a look at the tags column from there. So that's good, no errors. Let's have a click in here. Let's see what fields we've got available. We've got a field available called value. So that's the column name for the tags table. And there we are. We've got all of our terms that relate to the picture. So let's try changing the picture and making sure this is all still working. So we'll open that one up and we'll hit the button, and that picture gets sent to Cognitive Services. Cognitive Services sends back our data in that complicated table, and then what we do is we just interpret what's in that table. We navigate our way through that tabular structure to pull out the individual pieces of information that we want. So last little thing then, adding our hot dog not hot dog test in reference to the Silicon Valley show. So what I will do then is I will add a label. Let's just perhaps pop that out the way over here. And I'm going to have this either say hot dog or not hot dog, depending on whether there's a hot dog within the picture. So we've already seen how we can get our values. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to check to see whether we've got the value of hot dog in here. So we've already figured out how to pull this list of values. So we're going to reuse that. I'm just going to copy that formula. I'm going to come down to my text here. And we're going to put in a count rows. And our source for count rows, we're going to filter our list of tags and see whether any of them has a value equal to hot dog. So there we are. So 0 items in there have the value of hot dog. Let's just go and get a picture of the hot dog again. And make sure that we trigger the cognitive services. So give it a moment to analyse the picture. And there we go. So hot dog. So something to bear in mind that these are case sensitive. So it's saying there are 0 entries called hot dog with a capital H. So let's just change that to a lowercase h. And there we are. It says, yes, this is a hot dog. So if we wanted to finish this off, we can just say if, let's use a bit of line breaks to make this easier to read. So if our count rows is for hot dog greater than 0, then we're going to want to return the text hot dog. Oopsie, sorry, all fingers and thumbs. Otherwise, we want to return not hot dog. So there we are. So this is a picture of a hot dog. And if I change the picture again to something else, and we hit the button, we're going to see that this is not a picture of a hot dog, so not a hot dog there. So just a little bit of silliness to finish off with. Okay, so that's it then. That is how to use cognitive services within your Power Apps, or one of the ways that we can use it. Now, just a word of caution, this particular function that we're using here, just go back into the button, which is the describe image content. This is very well integrated with Power Apps, and we can just send it an image that we've got in our image control, and we can get the data back in a format that we can use. We have to navigate around it a little bit, but we get the data back in a format that we can use. Most of these APIs mean that we have to put flow as an intermediary step in the middle, and we'll look at doing that in the coming sessions. But this one is just to get you started. So the only complicated bit, I think, is where we have to navigate our way through the return data. That can take a little bit of thinking about, but we've got this whole thing working, and we've got a single connection to cognitive services, which just took us a few moments to set up. We've got one image control, we've got a label for the returned caption and for the confidence, and a data table to give us all of the values. So we've got what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 if you include that button, but you could put the code for the button under change picture as well, so that you don't have to click twice. So we've got 4 or 5 controls, and we've got 1, 2, 3, and the one on here, 4 formulas, and that's it. We can load our pictures in we can analyse them, and we can return the results and display it on screen. Okay, so I hope that's okay for you. I've gone fairly slow in the hope that you'll be following along, and to make sure that I don't miss anything. So yeah, let me know in the comments how you get on with that, and if that works for you as well. Okay, thanks very much, and I'll say bye for now.